Okay, so we are back with HR and other tomfoolery, having another candid and casual conversation about things that are important to us right now, things that we're living, things we're experiencing. And we're really excited to welcome Suzanne Longstreet. She has a very impressive background and a lot of great takeaways for the audience today. So, welcome, Suzanne, and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sorry. Okay. That's a good start.
I mean, we are here.
I'm here. I woke up today. Hi,
We're
everybody. My
here, we're
name
all
is
here.
I'm Suzanne Longstreet. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so nervous, apparently. Um, I'm an NLP master coach and trainer. Well, what does that mean? I work with people to change the way that they talk to themselves and how they communicate with others so that they understand themselves more and they can help, they can be less triggered, go out into the world and be more calm, have more courage, and build confidence.
I love that. You want to tell everyone a little bit about your background as well, because I think that's fascinating how it inspires your work.
So for many years, I tried to figure out what the heck, who I was. And I think that is exactly what led me into doing what I'm doing. And it started in grade two when I definitely just felt like I missed that day at school when they gave out the life manual. Like I was that person who just, everybody else was walking right and I went left. So it set me on a path to figure out what's the next. So I did business at university and I got a 4-year degree in business. And what I realized is that if people just communicated, because when I looked at all these business cases, if people just communicated better,
Oh, man.
the business wouldn't have failed. And so I went on a lifelong journey of communication, which led me through human resources, which led me through leadership development, performance management, KPIs, setting clear expectations so that people could understand exactly where they're going. So work with leaders on confidence and conflict conversations and how to hire the best person and all of this. And I did all of that until I was let go, fired for my behavior, which felt so foreign. I was like, but I'm the person who talks to everybody about behavior. So how did this happen? And then I went off and got a few coaching designations. I think I have 6 or 7 at this point in time because I kept looking for the answer. There's got to be something outside of me that will help me be a better person and show up in the
Mhm.
world. And what it really came down to is when I figured out who I really was and connected with all of my abilities, my strengths, my inner resources, that's when life changed and got a whole lot better.
I love
That's
that.
really interesting. And when you were let go for your behavior, was that a conclusion that you surmised yourself, or did they
Oh,
actually code
no.
that? They
Oh,
actually
they let
code
me
that.
know.
That's interesting. So
Oh,
being
yeah.
in HR, we and working with candidates, we always struggle with getting feedback due to compliance. So I'm now you have my attention. What exactly did they say? What happened?
Oh, yeah. I got dragged. Oh, so here's the thing. I had been in human resources and in the learning development area of human resources. And then I was one of the people who was in one of the businesses. I was working for a large financial services company. And one of the people who was in the pensions area, she said, "Hey, Suzanne, I've created a job. I really want you to apply for it." I'd love to. You've created the job just for me. So I became manager of learning and development for the pensions team. So I went from performance management and capabilities and studying emotional intelligence and how do we make people better to, okay, we need to figure out a process to make things better and train. Okay. So I was a square peg, round hole or a round peg, square hole, something like it was not a fit.
Mhm.
And everything I did was wrong. And I was crying a lot, behavior, because I kept getting triggered because I kept thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. People kept telling me, you don't know what you're doing. You don't understand us. You're not doing it right. And I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
following the process. What are you talking about? So I was triggered all over the place. And my man, the director tried to coach me out of this behavior by communicating as much as she could based on the competencies. Well, when you do this, that's not this. but she wasn't able to use the proper language. I never understood really what was going on.
Mhm.
And so when they got me into the termination room, you should see my dear friend Carol was the HR consultant who was in there. Her face was white. So I'm looking at her and I'm going, it's okay. I'll be fine. Don't worry. And then the manager comes into the room, the director. She says, your services are no longer required. You are terminated effective today. And it's because of your behavior. And she stuck out her hand. I wish you the best of luck.
No.
Well, as soon as you said financial services, I had a feeling I
Hmm.
knew where this story was going. I've worked in financial
Uh-huh.
services myself, so I know, you know, plenty of crying happened for me too. So,
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I had undiagnosed complex post-traumatic stress disorder
Oh my
because I
gosh.
was in my first marriage had been incredibly abusive and I had left him and it was good. God, by that point in time, it was 10 years later, but it had been
Oh,
undiagnosed. And so I was
yeah.
triggered by all the people because the first husband kept saying, you don't know what you're doing. You'll be nothing without me. And I believed him. And
Mm,
therefore, when somebody pointed that out to me in the workplace, I believed them and I went back to the place where I had been abused.
yeah, of course. Wow. It's amazing how it stays with you
Mm.
that long. Um, like I'm still shedding. Uh I had kind of an emotionally abusive marriage before as well, and I'm still shedding some of that reaction when my now husband, who is as kind and wonderful as can be, says something in the most tactful way he possibly could. And I'm like, what? I'm horrible. I'm the worst, like all these things. And I get so defensive and angry. And he's like, why are you angry? I'm just saying this. I'm like, you're right. I'm sorry. It's a me problem. It does until you, and I've done a lot of work too, but until you really kind of peel back those layers and do the work, it just stays with you. It doesn't go anywhere. So,
You drag it around with you.
thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that.
Mm.
Um, and I would say something else relatable that stuck out to me was, you saying that you felt like everybody knew what they were supposed to do and you missed that class because I was like the opposite person, right? I always knew I wanted to dance. I focused my whole life on dancing. I reached this elite professional level and then I couldn't sustain it anymore. And then I was like, well, now what do I do? My whole life has been devoted to this one thing. And like, what other skills do I have? Am I even like useful to anyone outside of this realm? And I went through that identity crisis at that point. And so, in the years of working with people through career change, um, I will tell you, like, that seems to be a universal experience. It just is when you experience it, right? Like, at some point, you experience that identity crisis of, like, this isn't who I am anymore, or it's not what I want to be. And so, I have no idea where to go next or what value I can provide or how to translate skills. And it's a very vulnerable, scary place. Um, but your story is so powerful because you've risen and accomplished all these things out of this place of not knowing. And your story about being let go and the how humble of you to do like all that look inside of like what is going on, what do I need to fix, what I need to work on. I think if more leaders were like you, we would have a lot less issues in general. So
And luckily, that's the work I do in the world, Alex.
exactly. So um before we dive into some of our like some of the things about your work right now that I really want to know, and I'm really excited to talk about, I have one random question, one intro question. What is one thing about you that we would never guess?
Uh, hmm. I'm a really good water skier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
fun. Where do
Dang.
you go?
I
I
haven't
suck
done
at
it
water
in a
skiing.
while, but I grew up on water skis.
Where
And
at?
I
That's
used to,
amazing.
pardon me?
Where at?
Are you familiar with Muskoka in north of Toronto in Canada?
I'm not. I've been to Toronto once, but sounds
Okay.
beautiful.
So Muskoka is the Berkshires, the Hamptons of Ontario, and it is considered to be. There's some beautiful lakes up there. It's where Goldie and Kurt Russell had their cottage, and multiple stars go up there and buy these beautiful cottages. And then you get in the boats and you drive around and you go, ooh, at these palaces that are on the water. It's a beautiful area. We were on a very small lake near the beautiful parts, and we had a speedboat, and I was the oldest of four kids, and mom and dad believed that, hey, get the kids out there on the lake and swim. And so I grew up on water skis.
Very cool.
Wow. I tried it once. I was terrible. I never got up. I don't know what the trick is. I have incredibly strong legs. That's the strongest part of my body. So I thought I would be like golden. And I'm actually very natural at mountain skiing. That
Yeah.
came to me like, walking. But water skiing, no, horrible.
Yeah.
Very hard, surprisingly hard. So good for you.
Thank you.
That's great. I'm a big water sport person. I have family
Mm.
in Michigan, so
No, you're not far.
doing all
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Will's always doing all the sporty stuff out there. So now diving into some of the work you're doing now, and this is interesting that you shared some of the background of these patterns and these triggers that were showing up. My question is, what is one of the most common hidden patterns you see in high achieving women, since that's one of the focuses of your work? And, what is kind of a behavior that exposes that to you?
Oh boy. They don't accept praise.
Mm,
They don't
yeah.
ask for what they need.
Mhm.
They don't speak up in a meeting, or they don't speak up. They don't show up. They don't allow themselves to stand out. There's a bunch. There's a bunch of, and everybody has a different one.
Mhm.
This is the joy of trying to figure it out. It's like, ooh, okay. And how do I know? So like they try really hard. Is probably the biggest one. I'm thinking of a woman that I saw. I had just outlined my ideal client avatar, and I was getting to know this woman that I typically work with, a female entrepreneur leader. And I was at a networking event, and this woman walked in, and she was gorgeous, perfectly made up, stunning. And she worked that room hard. And I looked at her and I just went, and there she is, my ideal client, doing all that she needs to do
Mhm.
with a brave smile. But inside, and I knew it because I could see her shuddering. I went, oh yeah, there she is. She became a client.
What did you see in her specifically? Like what did you kind of diagnose intuitively may have been going on in there?
It's the whole hustle. And I gotta do more, I gotta do more, I gotta do more, I gotta do more. I'm not doing enough. I gotta do more. That. Gotta just do it. And I don't know how, but it was an intuitive hit. Like, so neurolinguistic programming teaches you how to watch for the nuances and the signs and the eye patterns and the body language of other people. So, and I had been doing that for 5 years at that point in time. So it was just sort of there she is. I
Mhm.
can't tell you other than it was, oh, there she is. Yeah, there she
Yeah,
is.
you just instinctively knew. Yeah, I was thinking as you're talking through those different patterns and behaviors, how often women growing up and even into adulthood now, it's just starting to shift a little bit, I think, but are getting like completely opposite messages, right? Like be feminine, but not weak, be bold, but not aggressive, be, be humble, but not, too humble, be, confident, but not overconfident. Like it's just like so many mixed messages. And I remember growing up, like having that constantly playing in my brain. I would get complimented for things and I would be like, well, oh no, I'm not, because I'd hear the message of be humble. And then my mom was like, no, like just say thank you. Own it and just say thank you, And I was like, okay, that's a good lesson, so now I'm going to just say thank you and kind of own it. But just navigating those constant mixed messages is exhausting, right? And
Yes,
like trying to thread the needle of like, well, which one is it? Or is it somewhere in the middle? And how do I find the middle? And yeah, it's a lot.
it is. Yeah.
What is some of the links that you're finding between the work that you do around those behaviors and mindset and, income strategy, because your book is Millionaires Club. So talk to me a little bit about, what people should do first when they feel like they want to achieve this goal, they want to have greater income and greater power, but their mindset maybe is not there yet. What are kind of those first initial steps?
Um, I would love to know what you mean by income strategy. What does that mean? And how do I get that?
Right. So that's what I'm envisioning is like, if you're, let's take me, for example, right? Let's
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm trying to grow my business, I'm trying to scale it. It's a rough year, economy's all over the place, and I'm looking inward. Okay, what do I need to do differently to align with this income strategy and growth goal that I have of reaching, let's say, 1 million by the end of the year, not this year, by the end of 2026, right? Like, what are some steps? Is it mindset work? Is it other behaviors? Like, what are some steps that you would advise me or anyone else in that position to take when they're looking at an income goal?
Thank you. I appreciate the clarity. I'm
Sure.
just going to say the book is The Millionaire Codes.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Not club codes.
I just want to gently point out the name of the book.
Yes, very
And
important.
it's really interesting how thank you for defining income strategy, because what you're asking me is what you need to do. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to have what I want?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't start with the do. Who do I need to be?
Mm-hmm.
That's the shift that we need to make. Who do I need to be? And one of the first steps is believe that you can have it. Believe that you can be it.
Mm-hmm.
And stepping into that identity. And when we step into the identity and act from that place, everything becomes so much clearer.
Yeah.
So what would the seven-figure CEO do in this situation? How would the seven-figure CEO behave in this situation? What decision would the seven-figure CEO make now? So much clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're trying
Yeah,
to, instead of trying to push the rope, you're trying to pull the rope.
that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that, that psychology behind it's easier to scale to 10x than 2x, right? Because the
Yeah.
way you're making decisions is entirely different when you're looking at a 10x scale versus a 2x scale. It's
Because of
different
the way we're
behaviors, different
behaving.
decisions.
Yes,
Right.
exact behavior.
Yeah.
That's the key. How does a professional athlete behave differently than an amateur athlete?
Right.
How are
Yeah.
they
And
being differently?
you talk about that a little bit. You wrote a piece about the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders and kind of them stepping into their power and owning what they were worth, which was not being valued correctly. It ended up with them getting a 400% raise, it sounds like. And I want to understand, what did that story teach you about like collective visibility versus individual manifestation?
Mm. Well, it was interesting because as individuals, they didn't speak up. They didn't show up. They didn't stand up. They didn't rock the boat. Just going back to that behavior that you're talking about, don't be too big, don't be too loud, don't be too this, don't be too that. So as individuals, they didn't do anything. But it wasn't until they were in their third and fourth years, so they were almost out, that they went, okay, this has to stop. We need to stand up, not for ourselves, but for these other women coming behind us. And then they stood up, even though they had nothing to gain. Two or three of them um, who ended up helping and advocating and getting the 400% raise actually knew that they were never coming back, and they never benefited, but they still did it because it was the right thing to do. So that was a collective visibility to do it for the best of everyone. And then only one of them went, you know what? I worked hard for this. I'm definitely going back for a fifth year. And I really respect that, because she was like, I worked hard for this. I advocated for myself and others, and I'm going to reap the benefits. Thank you very much. It was a
Yeah,
confident, bold move.
I love that. That's interesting because I think I talk a lot about, women, I believe, tend to be more communal,
Yeah.
right? So when you talk about like they started thinking about what legacy they were leaving behind for the women, and that kind of emboldened and empowered them to do better, to do more. And I've seen that happen, I've also seen the adverse effect. When we talk about stepping into that mindset of the, $1 million CEO, what would you say, or what maybe do you see for women that are holding back because of that kind of caretaker and collective mentality of like, well, I don't want to neglect my children. I don't want to neglect my family, like I don't want to neglect my spouse. Like, what is it going to demand of me when I get to that point? And I'm scared of that. So they don't truly step into that
Yeah.
position.
They don't do it. They don't believe that they can. They don't become that identity, so they don't do it. They don't be, do, and have what they want. Um, I've watched so many women sacrifice themselves, thinking, oh, I'll put everybody else first. It's not about me. And that doesn't serve anybody. They play small. They're not shining brightly. They're not helping more people because they can't. They're not paying themselves. That's the biggest one. I've got to make sure everybody else gets paid. And then
Yeah.
they don't take a paycheck. And if they do, they're covering expenses. And it's it, it it's just crippling because that cycle, they just buy into their own limiting beliefs. And so then when somebody says, oh, can you discount your price? They do, because
Mhm.
there's limiting beliefs and they buy into that. And then it becomes this self-perpetuating cycle where they're not charging enough, they're not paying themselves enough, everybody else is getting paid more. It's just, why are you in business if you're not being there to make money? Yes, to help
Yeah.
people, I get it, but we need to cover our own needs and have more. We need to build from, we need, they said it in the training, and I liked this. You can't have influence unless you have affluence.
Yeah. And you're thinking affluence of
Money and
money.
ability to, yeah.
Mhm.
And there was something I saw recently, and it's about, when you make more money, you have the ability to give more. And when you're able to give more generously, then you're able to help more people. And so actually paying yourself what you're worth, inviting more people to work with you at a fair and reasonable, like, I'm not asking you to go out and now charge 100. So my cleaning lady, she started hearing what I was saying, and we had agreed that we were gonna pay her $40 an hour under the table. So she was cash in her pocket
Yeah.
for every hour that she was there. And she said it's a 3-hour clean minimum. I said, every other cleaning person we've had come in, because we keep it pretty clean, it's only been an hour and a half, sometimes two. But okay, I'm willing to give you 3 hours. So we had agreed 120. And then she started to hear what I was saying. And I went to Europe for 3 weeks. So she thought, oh, this woman's making money. I don't know what she was thinking. But all of a sudden, she turned around and she said, I need to pay myself what I'm worth. She sent us a text and she said, I'm now going to charge you $170. I said, well, hang on a second. We have an agreement. It's $120 for this clean. She goes, well, I need to pay myself what I'm worth. I said, have a nice day.
Hmm.
That's not what I mean. I don't mean just jack up your fees and, don't break the agreement,
Yeah.
so there has to be an agreement. So, or perhaps, we did something and she didn't like it and she didn't want to work with us anymore and she just decided to fire us in a weird way
Mhm.
by increasing her wages by 42%. That's not what I mean. I don't mean break the agreement, piss off your clients.
Yeah. That's a really important delineation.
Yeah.
So I was to say, Will can probably chime in here because I'm always having this rhetoric of like, we need to pay ourselves, we need to charge what we're worth, and I'm kind of trying to convince myself as I'm saying it, right? Because, I'm also the person to be like, I gave it away for free because I want to help. And Will's like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
So, um, but we try to find that balance of, we take a very, very modest income, for being owners of a company because we want to be able to pay our people fairly, but we still make sure we get paid. And that's something I'm unwilling to compromise on. Because I've heard all of this rhetoric over the years of me coming up, in business of, business owners don't make any money because they don't pay themselves. Yeah. Which again, like doesn't make any sense. What I'm putting all this work in so I can have flexibility and support my family. Can't do that if I'm paying everyone else and not myself. But how would you suggest people approach that conversation? So let's say, someone feels like they're underpaid or they know they're underpaid. What is the first conversation to have with leadership? What is the walk away point? And how do they delineate between demanding what they feel like they deserve and being reasonable at the same time?
I really do believe that this happened to me. I'm just going to go back there and say I was hired again in the financial services company. This was the beginning role, and I was in the HR department. Went from an HR assistant at a previous company in the post-secondary education to financial services private sector. And when I first heard about the job, they said it's going to be $48,000. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. $48,000. What I could do with $48,000. I was making $32,000 at the time. Again, post-secondary education. When they offered me the job, it was $40,000. I went, oh, well, it's still more than 32. So I was happy. Until I found out that my colleagues who had, yes, a couple more years of experience were being paid $8,000 and $11,000 more per year than me. Same job. So I started to say, hey, what? I'm only paid $1,000 more than the receptionist. And I was doing all of the work for my particular, I was doing all the offer letters and doing all the hiring and everything. And because the receptionist didn't have enough time to do anything for me. So I was like, what the heck? So I went in and I talked to the leader, and they said, well, you accepted it. And I went, right, I accepted it. Okay. Well, I didn't know that it was completely out of balance. So I continued to work and prove my worth and continued to do a good job and got exceeds on my evaluations and talk about it and have the conversation. But I kept showing up and proving my value and improving. And what happened in the end is a new manager came in, a new director and of HR, and she looked at my performance and looked at the other people's performance and looked at and said, okay, something's got to change. And so for the next several years, I got the full budget to get my salary up to where, so that we were all in line. I never made as much as the other ones because they were there longer. I respect that. Sure. So when would I have walked away? Well, I wasn't willing to walk away. I loved what I did. I didn't want to walk away, but I did want to keep the communication open. And I wanted to keep showing up every day and going 110% and proving my value so that they would start to see me. And that's how I handled that situation.
Yeah, I did something similar. When I came from dancing in New York City and got my first corporate job as an executive assistant to the VP at a marketing company. Still love this company. It's a fantastic organization. They gave me my start, but they brought me in at $37,500. And same thing, I was over the moon because I was barely making $30,000 working like 4 jobs living in New York City. So here I am in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have, significantly more income. I have stability with one job. I have benefits. It was of high value to me. I was crying. I was so like thrilled. And I hit the ground running and I was doing all these things and making all this impact. And I quickly, when I was hiring other people, started realizing I'm hiring these kids out of college at like 40, 45, with no experience. So, and I same thing. I tried to temper like, okay, this was what was of value to me. And this is why. So like, I can't undervalue that it's still a big change for me. So I kind of talked myself through that. But also, I took the approach of let me keep showing up in a way that proves my value over time so that I
Yeah.
can make the ask, and I did. And truly, I didn't even have to because my leader was such a strong one that he was always advocating for me. And I made sure that was visible to other leaders within the organization as well, and talking about the things I was working about on and talking about the things that I was accomplishing. So they saw that I was valuable because I was kind of segmented, right? So I wanted to make sure I was talking about it. And I ended up getting 4 promotions in 4 years. Like I was promoted and got a raise every single year because I was making myself visible, but I was also showing up and backing it up with my work and with the metrics and the costs, the projects, the cost saves, all these things. So, like that was also a similar approach of mine. I don't know if Will, I mean, you're a guy, Will. Like, did you take a different approach?
I'd like to hear
I'd
this.
love to hear this, right?
Well, I mean, I also started out like in my first roles, extremely low pay. Like my first role was 28,000, out of school, which was, and it's funny, Suzanne, you had mentioned the receptionist making more money than you. I had found out that our receptionist was making more money than me, and I was like working more hours, doing different things. And so, yeah, thankfully, I was in a good position where, I was working for a family-owned company, and so everything was very much like a conversation. So it was easier to combat that kind of stuff. I think when you run into the larger organizations, they, it's easier to shut things down with referencing like salary bands and
Yeah.
job titles and things like that. But in my situation, I was with a family-owned business, and so I went to my direct supervisor and just had a conversation about what I was doing and what the, pipeline for growth looked like and, projects I could work on. And, I did end up getting a raise, and referencing the accomplishments that I already had. So that was, I think that was an easier path for me just simply because of the organization I was in. But, for our candidates, we really coach on, doing that research around what the pays are and what the qualifications for that pay is. And, don't rely on ChatGPT because you get a lot of weird information in there. I have
Yeah.
people run into that problem all the time, but yeah, it also stood out to me, Suzanne, when you were talking about, know your worth and things like that. And we run into that with candidates all the time where it's like they're throwing out these crazy numbers and you just kind of have to have like a conversation with them and talk it through like where did you get this number? And why is
Mhm.
that number important to you? And kind of talk with them about the nuances of reality. And
Mhm.
so I think just talking through like what you've seen as a recruiter. So if you were a candidate, I would talk to as many different recruiters as possible about what they see, with their clients because different markets, different setups, different expectations all create different salaries. And so it's important to kind of have a good grasp on like why certain salaries are attached in certain places because, every company is different. I work a lot in public accounting and amongst all the firms are different in terms of what your job duties are. And so a lot of people will take, they'll take a new position based on a salary alone without understanding really what they're getting into and sacrificing a lot without knowing it.
Yeah.
And the other way around too. When I have present candidates with an offer and it's less money than they're making now, it's always a conversation about, well, let's do the math. And, at the end of the equation, you find out that they're actually making more per hour, with a less salary. So it's like, in our first conversation, you were telling me about work-life balance. You were telling me about the way that your manager treats you. And now we're at the finish line. And now you're telling me, now all you're talking about is a number. So, which one
Mhm.
is it? Um,
Yeah, we always talk when I'm coaching leaders or when we're doing career coaching, we always talk about not only what their value is, but also what they value,
Right.
right? Which is equally as important. And it's not always the income. Sometimes it's that balance. It's a great culture. It's being supported. It's doing something that they enjoy. Um, and that was something that I found through that experience was okay, yes, I was making as much as other people, but I was an amazing company. Like, what an incredible launch pad for me. They were giving me so many opportunities to grow and develop. They treated me with respect. I enjoyed the people I worked with. They were smart, they were capable. I still talk to them, 10 years later. There's something to be said for that, and a lot of flexibility too. I wasn't being asked to work 60-hour weeks. I was truly working like 40, 45, so you have to also understand what you value, and that has its own value to place on, you know, what you're asking for
Yeah.
from.
And I just want to add into this. It's the other thing is, and I coach my husband on this all the time because he's in a large marketing company and he puts in extra hours and extra time. He's actually in the last 5 years doubled his revenue in the company. They've actually paid double his revenue, his income, his pay.
Right.
And yeah, and it's because one of the things that I keep saying to him is, did you remind, like your boss that you saved so and so X hours a week in their job because you programmed this thing into an Excel spreadsheet that caused them to, instead of having to update it 3 times for 15 minutes each, they just go up. You've programmed something in and they now run it, and it's less than 5 minutes as opposed to 45 minutes to run that same. He goes, right, I've got to put that in my. And so he creates a success log of
Yep.
all things, the time savers, because he's in IT. So he saves people time. He makes their job easier. He documents the processes so that his colleagues can hear. And that's really valuable for the organization. It's not just about, well, I showed up today. No, what did you do? What value did you offer to the organization, to your colleagues?
Right.
And dialogue that, and because your boss, your leader, and
Hmm.
us leaders, we can't see it all. I'd
Yeah.
love it if somebody came to me and said, okay, I just want to remind you, these are the facts. This is what I did. This is how I helped the organization. This is how I increased revenue. Without me, that person, we never would have got that sale, or that I made this process more efficient, or I saved money over here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that when people bring that to me. It
Hmm.
helps me celebrate them because
Yeah.
yes, we're in our own zone. We have our own things to deliver on, our own things that we're juggling, and then life outside of work. It's sometimes hard to see if you're not, directly working with that person on everything.
It's
It's so
impossible.
important. Yeah.
And here's the other part of that is the worst thing that happens is people get all of it. Oh, they didn't notice. They didn't see me. They didn't
Mm.
recognize that I did that. It's like, help them recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely. Help us celebrate you. I think people get nervous about that. Like there's something wrong with talking about it. And that's not even like a male female thing. Like even I have same thing as my husband. I have to coach him on that because he does all these incredible things. He works for a huge company and he gets frustrated that he's, been passed over for promotions. It's like, well, do you talk about the things that you do? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, you got to talk about it. Like, and if your boss is not advocating for you, like find other people that will,
Yes.
like, and get in their ear about the things that you're accomplishing. It's so important because everyone's busy and spread thin, and I truly believe most people want to do right by other people. You just have to like position yourself.
Yeah. And not in the hey,
Icky way. Like,
yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Not in
yeah,
that way.
right. Like, hey, I'm really excited to share with you. Like, these are the things that I accomplished this past month, or this is a really big win that I had, just objectively as a fact. You're just stating facts. So now, when does being more visible become bad advice, though? Like, who at what point should not crank up the visibility yet? And maybe what should they do first?
You know what's coming to mind, and I don't know if this makes sense, but you got to build the house before you decorate it.
Uh-huh.
So if you're just going out there but you have no foundation, you can't paint the walls before you build them. So get the foundation, get the process in place, and then go out and start talking about the wins. Just like what we were talking about as an employee to their leader, as an entrepreneur going out, making sure that you have something. And if you don't, if you have nothing, you're stepping into a new opportunity and you have no experience doing it, even then, go and volunteer and offer your services, perhaps in an energetic trade. And then, but not for long, because I did that for too many years. I just kept doing energetic trades. I'll do your services and you do mine. We don't want to do that too long, but and then what you have happens is you get credibility, you get testimonials, you get confidence,
Yeah.
then go out and be more visible and talk about it more.
I'm a huge fan of offering services for free at the start. And that's
Yeah.
the key thing, right? At the start,
At the
because
start.
you're building that those case studies.
Mhm.
You're also testing out your own methodology, right? Like, does it work the way I think? Does it not work? And you're refining so that
Yeah.
when you get that paid client, like you really know you're delivering a solid service.
Yes.
But yeah, making that shift and knowing when that shift is definitely important. I have two last thoughtful questions for you before we move into our lightning round to close out the conversation. What are some ethical red flags you see in the coaching space right now? Because the coaching space is very inundated. There's a lot of coaches out there now. So what do you see?
Follow my proven cookie cutter approach, and you will get the results that you desire.
The,
There's no
the cookie
cookie
cutter
cutter approach.
promises?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no cookie cutter approach. I am sorry. Every every single person needs to do it differently. And I really do believe this is where I go back to my quantum U activation method, which is it's a triangle. First, be connecting with who you are really being. Know who you are
Mm-hmm.
and, and who you're not. Then do, then have. Too many people start with, okay, in order to have the thing, what do I need to do? And they forget about the be. So
Mm.
my most important advice is start with the be, then go to the do, then the have. The have will.
Yeah. Yeah, that adaptability is so important, that customization. Like I know when we train people that come in for us as HR consultants to work with our like business clients, they're like, well, what is this? How do you approach this? So what do you do for that? And it's like, we have for sure like frameworks
Yeah.
that we use, but we can't tell you exactly what it is because every client is different. You have to customize. Like that's the value that we bring, right?
Yes.
Because they could go, excuse me, they could go to an ADP and get a template that they don't know how to use. It's not customized. It's not very thoughtful, but that's the value that we bring. So you have to have, as a coach, as a leader, as an HR strategist, like you definitely have to have a level of customization and adaptability that you bring to everything. Same thing in career coaching, right? Like we have this whole methodology that we've tried and tested over years, and it definitely gets customers like 80% of the way, but those little nuances that they get from working with us one-on-one of their specific situation, like, okay, well, let's tweak it a little bit that way. Let's tweak a little bit, you know, those are the game changers. And that's hard, right? Because everyone just wants to do less and get more.
Right.
Understandably, we're spread thin, but yeah, I think that's the cookie cutter approach is definitely a downfall of our
Yeah.
field.
And following along with the cookie cutter approach, do it the way I did it, and you'll have the same success.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're going to get to your path differently than how I did it
Yeah.
because we're different people.
People. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's a, oh, sorry. Well, you're going to say something.
I was just gonna add that that's a like a word of advice that I always use is that I can show you how I did it, but I can't show you how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nor can ChatGPT or any of these other AIs. I just want to be
No.
really clear about that. They can give you some really good ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
I love AI, but seriously, there's still the human connection that we need.
Oh, yeah. That human equation is imperative.
Mhm.
What is a quick everyday practice that we could use to tap into, or listeners could use to tap into that quantum you on the fly? Like, what's something that we can simply do and adopt each day?
This is so simple. It's almost too simple. Pay attention to how you're talking to yourself
Yeah.
because your unconscious mind is always listening to the conversation. And if you're telling yourself, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I can't be that, I can't have that, the unconscious mind goes, okay, yep, we can do the process of can't. Let's make sure that we do the process of can't. I cannot tell you, so many people, they think, oh, I'm going to get a new job. You've run into this. I want to get a new job because my boss is this and my colleagues are that and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to get a new job. I did it. And guess what? 6 months, it's great. After 6 months, the colleague is now acting just like their old boss did. That's how.
Mhm.
So not because the other people are different, but because they're the same and they are just projecting on everybody else the same problem because of what they're saying to themselves. So if you can catch the dialogue in your head, pay attention to how you're talking to yourself, what programs you're putting in place, that is the basics of neurolinguistic programming. It is so simple. I had a client years ago and they said to me, but I can't I can't control my thoughts. And I'm like, oh dear God, if you can't control your thoughts, who is?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh God.
yeah,
So we
yes.
worked really hard to make sure that she understood that she could control her thoughts. She could
Mm-hmm.
pay attention to her thoughts. So yeah, I call it compassionate observation. Just pay attention to how you're thinking. And it's usually those whispers, first thing in the morning, last thing at night. It's the throwaway comments. I was talking to a client years ago and I said, oh, and she had this really cool leather jacket. We were standing at the door in the before COVID days when I would coach people in my home. And she was leaving. I said, that is such a cool jacket. She goes, yeah, every time I put it on, I convince myself that it was a good purchase. So that's a trigger for me. I'm like, she's convincing herself. She got to her car. She drove a beautiful Mercedes SUV. And I said, just wanted to test this. I said, so do you like your car? I've been thinking about getting a Mercedes. She goes, yeah. And every time I get in, I convince myself that it was a good purchase. So guess what we worked on the next time she came in? We worked on her convincer because she had to convince herself about everything every day. She was running that pattern, which wasn't
I
serving.
know.
When that shifted, that one pattern of behavior and thinking shifted everything.
Yeah, I bet. That's a mental lift. That's really heavy to have to
Yeah.
convince yourself of
Yeah, but
everything every day.
it's just her normal, right? It was just her
Yeah,
normal. It would
yeah.
never. So this is what I mean by we have to pay attention to our thoughts. We have to compassionately observe what they are, pay attention to what we're thinking and how we're thinking and what we're saying to each other, ourselves. And that's why it's not a cookie cutter approach.
Hmm.
Everybody thinks differently.
I had someone I remember hearing once like share the technique of writing down for a day, like what you're saying to yourself,
Ooh.
just to recognize, again, like you said, like just compassionate observation, right? Just to recognize the things that you tell yourself and how it's so subconscious now that you don't even realize. I know I try to explain to my kids, my oldest has like very severe self-talk, and I try to tell them about, he's kind of a little nerdy, likes to know everything. So I'm talk about like the neural pathways and like
Good.
every time you do this thing, all you're basically, creating this path and you're digging it deeper and entrenching it deeper and entrenching it deeper, the more you repeat it. And so like you can change them, but it takes time to get out of that path and get into a new one, and that's just takes practice of kind of resetting the new one. Um, but doing that for myself for sure has been like its own thing because
Mhm.
I'm a natural teacher, right? So I
Mhm.
love like teaching other people how to do those things. But then when it comes to me doing it, it's a little bit harder.
Yes. And
And I'm
it's
still
the
working
work,
on it.
it's the work we get to do in the world.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I love the
Okay.
analogy of the digging the trench and the neural pathways because, and I heard it explained this way, is if you want to reroute the river, dig a new trench.
Right.
And that's all we're doing because the emotions and the thoughts are just the water.
Yeah,
And
they're just
we
running.
just need to reroute the path. And that's it. It's as simple as, oh, I'm just going to change that.
Exactly. One of my favorite simple changes that I've learned over the years was instead of saying I can't,
Yep.
I just my kids saying I can't yet, right?
Ooh,
Because it acknowledges that like you can't do everything,
yeah.
right? Sometimes you need to learn how to do something. So it's not really realistic to say like I can. Well, maybe you can't, but you can't yet, right? Like you will be able to if you keep trying.
I heard
So
a
I
great analogy for that one, and the acronym is I certainly am not trying. I can't. I certainly am not trying. So every time I hear myself say it, I haven't
yeah.
said it in a while, I can't, blah, blah. Then I go, I certainly am not trying. Okay, how can I try this differently? How can I do this differently? How can I be different? How can I?
Yeah, I love that. It's proactive mindset, and curiosity. Like,
Yeah,
what can I do differently? I love that. All right, you ready for our lightning round?
ready.
4 questions, quick fire offs. What is a manifestation you believe in and a manifestation you side eye?
Oh my gosh, it's supposed to be fast. I think manifestation I believe in and a manifestation I side eye. Um, I think The Secret. I side eye The Secret because it's not about just doing more, it's about being. So The
Mm,
Secret was a great book and it was revolutionary for the time, but it taught us just to believe, just to do more. And it was like, no, 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 there's wait a minute. There was, is it, am I getting it right? Is it no, it was about just believe that you can have it and it will all come to you. That was what it was, The Secret. So The Secret is
yes.
my side eye because it was just believe, sit on the couch and meditate and everything will come. Right.
Right.
And the
Yes,
belief
bullshit.
is, right. The belief is first we have to believe that we can do it, then we have
Yep.
to take some action towards it.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm not a religious person, but I always, I mean, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not was brought up religious, but I always hear the term from the Bible, like God helps those who help themselves. So
Mm,
like,
I like
it's
that.
that element of like, yes, believe that you can do it, but you also have to take steps towards it. And
Yeah.
then everything else will continue to fall into place. I love that.
Yes. Follow the path.
Yes. First hire for an entrepreneur who's trying to grow. Virtual assistant, sales, or operations.
Operations. Get the
Hey,
systems
why?
and processes in place. Then you can build on the foundation and then you can do all the sexy stuff.
I love it. The bravest money decision you've made in the last 12 months.
Oh, yeah. I invested $10,000 to write a chapter in a book of a co-author of a previous co-author of Tony Robbins. So this guy's got a list of
Ooh.
500,000 people. And I've made the investment. I've done the everything I've done. And now I'm waiting because it's on their timeline.
You know what? That's awesome, though. You have to let us know when it comes out.
Okay.
I'm really excited for you.
I don't know
And then
because they're in the process and they won't tell it. And they're like, be patient with the process. I'm like, I want to know now what's going on.
3 years later.
Yeah. No, don't say that.
Sorry, we're not manifesting that. No. 3 months later. 3 months later, you'll get an answer. One cliche you'd ban forever.
Mm. Hmm. What's a cliche? Like, what would
Like something that's like a trite, like thing that's repeated over and over again, or
that everybody else says
yeah.
something cliche. Oh, well, the one that I shared earlier, which is there's a 7-step proven cookie cutter process that if you do all these things, you can have the greatest success in the world. I totally ban that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Those blanket sales pitches. Oof, yuck. All right, closing thought. If our listeners did one thing in the next 48 hours to step into their millionaire identity, what would it be?
Pay attention to what you tell yourself when you first wake up every morning. Are you focused on what's possible or are you focused on what's not possible?
I'm gonna start doing that, Suzanne. I love that. Thank you so much. This was such a cool conversation. We definitely want to have you back. I feel like I want to keep picking your brain. There's so many things.
I have so many things to share.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today. And we are excited to share out this with our listeners and on our socials. Definitely catch Suzanne. Do you have anything else you want to plug for our listeners that you're working on right now they should know about?
I am so excited. This is a proof from Amazon.com of the new book, The Millionaire Brain. It's coming out next year. And so this is going to be about recoding your neurology to create courage, confidence, and clarity, courage, and confidence.
I
So
love
coming up
it.
next year, The Millionaire Brain.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Congratulations. I'm so excited. So excited for you. All right. Well, thank you. We will talk to you soon. And thank you to everyone listening or watching today. And we'll be back in a couple
Thanks,
weeks.
Suzanne.
Thank you so much.